My name is Madhusudhan, and today I'll be talking to you about my story of how I came to applying data science to battle a few real-world problems like air pollution and climate change. So it's going to be it can get slightly technical, and I also have a presentation to share. Let me get that started. Um, okay. Okay, I assume that my screen is visible. Okay, great. So let's start with the question. What would you do if you saw something strange bug-like floating in your glass of drinking water when you're at a restaurant? You would not drink it, right? You would just give it back. And perhaps you would wait till you go home to get drinks clean, safe water. Unfortunately, there's no such option for air. You can't say that there's a lot of smoke, I'll not breathe here. I'll go home and breathe, right? What if the air at home is also bad? Or how bad can it be? We don't even know. Or do we even know? So, like it or not, we are forced to breathe the air we are surrounded. And there's often no guarantee or no data or no information on how clean the air is. Now, here's quick statistics on a little bit of the stuff on what, according to World Health Organization, 92% of the world's population live in places where air quality exceeds the WHO standard limits. A Greenpeace report that's on the screen indicates that 22 out of 30 world's most polluted cities are in India. In 2021, Delhi recorded an air quality index of 500 plus in November last year, right? But we all don't know what's the quality of air that we are breathing right now, wherever we are, do we? And even if we do it, besides wearing a mask, what can you do with this information? Nothing, right? But what if I told you you can do something about it? So let's say you could become a part of a community change, or you would simply avoid being in high pollution zones, or you would even perhaps relocate to a cleaner neighborhood if you had the data, where you're living in a polluted area. You would avoid exercising or running in a certain path or a road if you knew that was very polluted. And if one of you is a doctor and you knew a patient lived in a very polluted location and his symptoms are affected by it, he would alter his treatment plan. Actionable data can help you make the right decisions, avert many problems. But these are all very small things we can do as individuals. But there are so many things that businesses, governments, and it's a both upstream and a downstream problem. We can all come together, but they're not able to come together until now. It's because even the administrations are not able to act on it. It's because lack of data. So this is where it all began for me. Air pollution and air quality, whatever I'm doing, is not just a business idea I wanted to pursue. It's a personal problem that I set out to address some time ago when my 6-month-old son was severely impacted by air pollution. I don't know how many parents are out here in this room. I'm pretty sure if you have a little one, you could relate to it. A few years ago, when my son started developing certain breathing issues due to air pollution in and around my residence in Electronic City, Bangalore, doctors could not diagnose the root cause and the symptoms prevailed. I started checking online like everybody else, and I looked for what might be the air quality around my house. To my surprise, I found that the nearest air monitoring station, this was a station. This is about 13 kilometers away, and it said that the air is, air quality is safe. It's 35. Air quality index is 35. Now, somehow I couldn't believe it. So to get a better sense of air quality in my immediate surrounding, I put together a rudimentary air monitoring sensor that could give me real-time data about the quality in and around my house. So while the internet said that air quality is 35 and everything is healthy, I found that the levels of particulate matter is a PM2.5 is smaller, 10 times smaller than 1/10 the size of human hair. And these are inhalable particles and that cause severe health issues. And body has no way of, being immune to this. And this was the case near my house. And when the reading said that the sensor was reading 800 and the safe limit is 50. So like, being a guy, this was a wake up call. This is my epiphany. After analyzing the data, I realized that the main cause of air pollution was due to a textile factory burning low cost fuels close to my house. So when I started, disclosing this data, my apartment community and I took up this issue. We collectively decided to reach out to them for a solution. After a series of discussion, they decided to make amends and use an environmentally friendly fuel that resulted in an improvement of air quality in our area. And we were able to bring about a change which was affecting the entire street, thousands of families, thousands of children, because we were armed with the right amount information, right air quality data, it not only made a difference to my son's health, but it improved the quality of life of thousands of families living in the area. But one thing we realized from all of this, that air quality changes throughout the day, and it's not the same at the beginning of the road or the end of the it's not the same in January, it's not the same in February, it's not the same in December. Small changes in air pollution, the kind you might find between different streets or neighborhoods, are proven to significantly increase health risks. The problem again was there wasn't enough one could know about all this. So all of Bangalore had only 5 air monitoring sensors functioning, and that covered only 0.01% of the city. They were centered around the center of the city, nothing, most of it. And even in then, some of the sensors were offline. They had no data, they were under maintenance. Right. I realized that for a common man, there were hardly any tools to access this information, and forget people taking action on it. Right. So imagine the difference it would make to the quality of life if people had something that as a sensor that was virtually present outside their balcony, right outside their door. This began my starting for AMBI. We started AMBI in 2017 with an aim to empower common man with data about hyperlocal air quality in real time that can help them understand the impact of environment on their health. Now, air pollution may be a very common and a very debatable thing, but it's at the epicenter of the climate change problem. We started monitoring air. We're one of India's largest private air sensor network. But however, we track every environmental data across the world that are influencing climate change. More on that later. Air pollution also is, center of all natural calamities and planetary health. This is how, it all started for us. This is how we consume energy. There are 3 biggest consumers of energy: buildings, transport, and industries. Biggest 3, because they consume the most energy, they also create emissions. Emissions for air pollution, which traps heat and in turn causes global warming, which creates the climate change. Now, let me ask you this. I'm in this situation, I've discovered all this information. Now I'm thinking, how can we measure air pollution across every street, around the clock, and across the world? Think about it. Now, we surely can't put sensors everywhere, every street, right? And this is where data science and research came to help. This is a classic data science problem. We found out that to crack this puzzle, we must understand that measuring air quality, putting sensors is not enough to predict or to measure across the world. One big reveal was 98% of air pollution is anthropogenic, which means that it's influenced by human activity. If we have to measure air pollution, we have to measure human activities like traffic, industries, construction, food repair, road repairs, forest fires, garbage burning, landfill, buildings, population density. All of this is contributing to air pollution. And there is not enough sensors, there's not enough data. So we had to solve that problem. Now, along with this, there is meteorological inferences like temperature, rain, humidity, wind speed influences air pollution. So we started tracking all of this. And this is a basic, I don't know how many of, if anybody in the tech side domain could understand, but I've also simplified it. So anthropogenic data is human activities, right? Now we could track, we found out multiple sources from which we can get data. There are enough ground sensors. Some of them are our own. We put some of our own sensors. Again, we brought down the cost by 99%. And we started tracking all of this to spatially interpolate forecast air quality. So we added Earth observatory data, we added population density, we started getting traffic data, forest fire data, meteorological inputs, all of this trained into a pipeline, pre-processed, formatted. We studied 20 years of all of this data, the whole progression of how this data changed over a period of time. And close to 65,000 on-ground air monitoring stations, over 70,000 weather radar stations, 11 plus satellites. And we track this across 100 plus countries today. Machine learning models that are built based on these 2 decades of human activities are there. But what also is important is to go back to this ground reality that emissions are there, air quality is still at the center of it, and energy consumption, right? So if you look at this chart, human activity is influenced. Now this red line is actually talking about the human activities that are causing, and the black line here is so highly correlated and it's increasing. As human activities increase, our global surface temperature increases. But however, there is not enough granular data that is usable, applicable, actionable with it, right? So what we did is that measure data plus model data with data science gives a global coverage of emissions. Now we have air quality pollen. We're India's first pollen data, hyperlocal weather, soil, water, greenhouse gases we track, wildfires, climate risk, and we are able to predict climate risk all the way to the end of the century, 78 years from now, and we have a class-leading probabilistic event attribution. Which is again talking about it. So today we have our sensor network, all of this combined. This is how Bangalore looks like. Now all the purple are virtual air monitoring stations along with ambi air monitoring, physical air monitoring stations and the current infrastructure. Today we measure air quality across 110 countries, street by street, and you can always be informed about how we are, what is it for you, how it's affecting, when's the next flood is going to come. But it doesn't end there for us. With the right data, we can do a whole lot more. We can avoid severe weather events, such as the recent floods in Chennai, through early forecasts to national disaster recovery teams. Administrations can be prepared for extreme environmental events. Businesses can use data to mitigate risks of climate change, and people can be aware of how their actions contribute to air pollution and take necessary actions to protect their loved ones from the impact of air pollution. Now let me tell you a little bit more statistics about this. That with the right amount of data, we can save up to 131 trillion dollars of losses to GDP, global GDP. India alone loses 8% of its GDP to air pollution. Now we studied all of this from 1980 to 2019. Yeah, this is emissions that we track live. Nowhere in the world that you get live emissions data as to what, if you're in Mumbai, what each area, each street is contributing to emissions, what are the sources and how you can reduce can be accounted from here. So this is probabilistic event attribution, but this between 1980 and 2019, which has been the duration of our study where we gather data, weather and climate related extremes accounted for about 81% of total economic losses caused by natural hazards. And this amounted to 446 billion euros. And as recently as 2018, the World Economic Forum estimated that the worldwide economic damage from natural disasters add up to $165 billion. Now, if we have this data, we're able to predict this. And if we take an event specific view to make it more concrete, the 9 most destructive climate disasters of 2020 caused damage worth at least $5 billion. Now, some of these disasters hit fast, like Cyclone Amphan, which struck the Bay of Bengal in May and caused losses valued at 13 billion in a few days. Others unfolded over a few months, like floods in China, which had an estimated cost of 32 billion and 10 billion respectively. In the US, the hurricane season and the record-breaking fire season caused more than 60 billion in damages. These estimates are usually based on insured losses only, meaning the true financial costs are likely to be a lot higher. But it's not just economic change we're talking about. Climate-related events cause tremendous secondary damage. For example, as heat and humidity increases in India, 160 to 200 million people could live in regions experiencing a heat wave by 2030. And this is more real. And with a 5% probability that these regions exceed the survivability threshold for a healthy human being. We are solving this problem head on. Over the last 3 years, we have over 150,000 users benefit from our data on a daily basis. We've been able to predict over 1,000 asthma attacks, prevent a lot of them across the world. We're working with insurance companies to launch insurance plans for health issues caused due to air pollution. Very soon, you will see India's first air pollution-based insurance going live very soon, empowered by our data. And we're also actively working with administrative bodies, pharmaceuticals, to solve this problem permanently by developing new, better drugs, identifying emission inventories, creating new policies, coming up with better medical decision support system, clinical trials, and a whole lot more. And at AMBI, we now have the world's largest data on emissions. We process over 4 terabytes of data. We're on a daily basis. We're able to measure air quality in relation to human activities and meteorology. And with this data, we're able to visualize where the world is heading. But all that's not gory. There are so many things we can do. We still have a chance to bring us all back and save this planet. And data is at the core of everything, right? With sea levels rising to air pollution, about 30% of Mumbai can be underwater. We can save that. A number of environmental disasters like tsunamis, heat waves, as a result of the chain reactions caused, and 80% of natural calamities are influenced by the pollution in air. 50% of that can be reduced because of air pollution, because of this data. In the next 15 years, India will be the second most vulnerable country prone to heat waves. We can change that. And all these events will cause food shortage, supply chain disruptions, business risks. Everybody will feel the impact. Every business, every person, every family, every house will be feel the impact of climate change. We can stop that from happening. And this event is universal, pervasive, expensive. It affects everyone in every industry. Think about last time you read about strained or blacked out, areas, power grids, disrupted supply chain, right? Really hot or visibility short problem in, you had cars bumping into each other on a highway because there was no visibility, wildfires or flooded, roads, right? Historic and current economic losses due to those events is quite simply massive. We are helping this data to understand that risk related pressures on capital, on businesses, on administrations, enterprises, producers, and governments. There's a large gap between climate science data and individual risks faced by asset owners, those that price risk on assets. And we are bringing that clarity to them and predictive clarity, not just things. So, what can businesses do today? They can do three things. One is understand where they are, reduce emissions on the net zero roadmap, adapt or transition to climate change, and understand climate risk for all their physical and financial assets. Now, what can we do as individuals? One is we can start tracking our carbon footprint, and at the same time, granular and hyperlocal data can have a huge impact on your health. For those who ride to work, the ability to see pollution on the way may well incentivize us to choose a route that is a couple of minutes longer, but noticeably cleaner. For joggers and runners among us, right, I definitely make an effort to go for a run every day, although I'm not able to keep up, but I'm trying. Picking a cleaner path or choosing the right time to run, taking your child for a walk at the right time, the right route, is important. With this data, you can make those small micro decisions happen. If somebody is burning garbage around you or using diesel generators, as a community, this data can drive things, and we're already seeing this happening. Citizen communities can come together to make this kind of changes happen, right? And if you're biking or running on a polluted route, if you're health conscious, it's like eating ice cream after every workout and hoping to lose weight, and that can't happen. So this data can bring in these kind of changes in behavior. And most importantly, we can take care of our family. After all, family health is a basic factor in any decision. Even schools can be triaged depending on which schools play area, timing, and routes are least polluted. And these are some of the steps. There's plenty more that we can do. On the larger global picture, we have already seen countries are coming together to tackle climate change, and they're following IPCC route where they're doing two things. One is bring down emissions, cut down the emissions, understand and prepare for risks, and build climate resilience. So air pollution is not just a city-specific problem. It's a global problem, and that has an impact on health of people as well as planet. And for the first time, this data is made available to everybody for free, for businesses in a different way, in a different format. And polluted air comprises of greenhouse gases that trap heat. You can now measure how much of heat and how it's affecting, how the gases pollutants are affecting health on a micro scale individually, on a macro scale for an entire country, but to all your customer base, how it's warming the planet and how they are directly responsible for all the climate mishaps we've seen in the past. And just to give you one of the examples, one of our customers is who has integrated this data called Julie.co, has built an application on providing all of these insights in across everything. You can see the cycle around suggesting the route, suggesting medicines, suggesting extreme weather events, suggesting inhalers, medicines, wearables, and giving notification as to somebody can improve their living based on this data. And we have many such integrations. We have another customer, which is a very large customer called Lupin and Adhero, and they are coming up with it's an Indian pharmaceutical giant, Lupin. They collaborated with Aptar Pharma, and they've integrated Ambi's air quality and weather data to its smart inhaler, Adhero, that assists patients with chronic respiratory diseases. We also help with something called as meter dose inhaler, which is built out of a clinical trials for real world evidence. And the linked app sends reminders, provides contextual health alerts based on air quality levels of current locations, and has visual analytics. We're working with other large pharma companies to track real world evidences against clinical trials to develop better drugs and a whole lot more. You see how data is now bringing both individuals at the downstream and businesses, governments, enterprises at the upstream to come and solve this problem together, because one person can't solve this. It's not an air purifier you put out can solve this problem. That's like telling I'll put an air conditioner to solve the global warming problem. That's not how it works. So as Peter Drucker famously said, if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. So one of the biggest factors affecting humankind's fight against air pollution, it's not air pollution itself, it's lack of data. And we are unaware about the quality of air we breathe, the impact of the environment we are living in, and impact of it on our health and our planet, and whether the steps taken or solutions implemented by businesses, governments are actually improving quality of life, of planet, of health, of climate around us. Accurate, actionable data can enable us make informed decisions, and that's when we can have a long-lasting impact on our future generations. And we need to do this. Data is going to change the space. Extremely important that we rely on data. If we don't measure and act on it today, there might not be a tomorrow to live for. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me on this platform.